Hello, good afternoon, everybody. I'm filling in for Maggie Buckley, and we're going to present today a lunch and learn on accessing the vote, which is a very important issue, and it's being sponsored today by Arise and Voice Buffalo. And I'm going to my name is Max Donatelli. I'm one of the members, and I was asked to fill in. And so I'm going to be presenting, at least, introducing our moderator and our speakers today. So welcome, everybody. When I introduce our moderator this afternoon is going to be Mr. Frank Cammarata. He's the director of the Erie County Office for People with Disabilities. And we have guest speakers today, Todd Vaarwerk, Chief Policy Officer, Western New York Independent Living. We have Shanell Davis, who's from People Inc., Advocacy. And we also have Sarah Saunders, Incredible Voice Self-Advocacy Group member. And they're going to talk today about the accessing the vote. And I'm going to kick it to Frank Cammarata. So Frank, take it away.
Thank you very much, Max. And thank you for that wonderful introduction. And as Max said, I'm Frank Cammarata. I'm the Executive Director of the Erie County Office for People with Disabilities. And for those of you who may be watching from outside of Erie County, Western New York, that's where Erie County is, in Western New York, Buffalo, the city of Buffalo, and the proper areas of the city of Buffalo, and over 950,000 people here in Erie County. So thank you for joining us. And as Max alluded to, yesterday was the beginning of National Disability Voting Rights Week. So this is a very important week for us all to be participating and focusing on the right to vote, especially for people with disabilities. And we all know that today we have a debate, a presidential debate happening this evening. So this is a vital topic for all of us to be participating in, to learn how to get the vote out and make sure that everyone has an opportunity to vote. So as Max stated, the folks who are participating with us are Sarah Saunders. Sarah, would you like to introduce yourself and give a little bit of an introduction?
Yes. Hi, I'm Sarah. I am from the Incredible Voice Self-Advocacy Group. It's a part of the Allegheny County and Steuben. And I'm also on the Community Advisory Council for Spark for Autism, which is a research center.
Very good. Thank you very much, Sarah. And next we have Todd Vaarwerk. Hi, Todd. Would you like to do a quick introduction?
Sure. My name is Todd Vaarwerk. I am Chief Policy Officer at Western New York Independent Living. That's a federally and state-funded independent living center that serves the western part of New York State. In addition to that, I am a member of the City of Buffalo Mayor's Advisory Committee on People with Disabilities and a member of the Voice Buffalo Board of Directors. My primary mission in life is to make sure that people get the rights they're entitled to under law, and that includes the right to cast an independent and secret ballot.
Thank you, Todd. And the next presenter is Shanell Davis. Shanell, would you like to give us an introduction?
Hi, I'm Shanell Davis, an advocate and advocacy support professional with People Inc. And I also sit on the advisory council with Todd, and I know we will do some great work together.
Very good. And I guess we should have started with the fact that the organization called Arise. Arise stands for Acceptance, Respect, Inclusion, Support, and Equity. And it's a group of folks, like-minded folks, who have been getting together now for the past couple of years to talk about specific issues and needs related to people with disabilities here in the Western New York area. So Sarah, I'm going to start with you. Sarah, can you tell me about your experience with regard to polling places and voting?
Yeah, so I live in a small rural town, and right when I walk into my voting place, I get signed in, and there's a few rows of tables with some borders like around it, so it's private. And you walk in and you sign in, and they say, okay, they give you a piece of paper and they have you go and sit down. And that's all I see in there. And they don't tell me anything else. They don't say, there's not any, like, I don't notice any accessible voting machine in my location. Um, all I do is hand me the paper after I sign in. I go over, I sit down, and then, there's the scanner, and you scan it in there, and that's it. And I reached out to my county, and apparently we're supposed to have an accessible voting machine at my polling place. I don't see it. If it is there, it's not labeled properly. It should be, because if it's supposed to be there, then it should be, you know, accessible for everybody, because I'm sure I'm not the only one in my area that would be benefiting from it. Um, and so I feel like that is a big issue with my polling place.
All right. Thank you, Sarah. And Shanell, can you tell me about, tell the listeners about your voting experiences?
Yes, so my first voting experience when I was young, probably about my late teens, early 20s, was very different from my voting experience now because I know a lot more about what should be there for me. So I remember when I got there, I didn't really get a lot of support, a lot of help. No one really told me where to go, or I had no idea about an accessible voting machine at all. I had to fill out the paper myself, and I couldn't actually submit my ballot myself. So I actually had to have someone put it in the machine for me. But it was a little hectic, a little stressful because I didn't feel like I had enough support there. Also, transportation was a little difficult until I found out that I was able to get a free ride to my polling place, but I had no idea until I believe Sophia actually is the one who told us about it. Yes. But now I'm able to take staff with me to go and fill out the ballot for me, and I actually live in walking distance from my polling place, so it's a much better experience.
Well, that's wonderful to hear. Glad to hear that. And Todd, how about you? Can you tell us about your voting experience? Oh, you're on mute.
I've been voting since the mid 80s. So I voted on what we would call the classic lever voting machines. And the thing about lever voting machines is it's a show, because when you get to the point when you're in line waiting to vote and you get your chance to vote, the poll workers here in New York needed to find the crank, literally a handle that they stuck in the back of the voting machine, to crank it down to wheelchair height, because I'm a wheelchair user, so that I could roll in and manipulate the levers to cast my ballot. And then when I left, instead of leaving it in that position for the next voters, because you still couldn't see anything because the privacy screen would cover all the levers, right? They had to do the whole thing about cranking it back up to standing height before the next voter came in, right? So every time I wanted to vote, it was a production and people could see it every time. And they'd complain because it takes, 3 minutes to crank the thing down and 3 minutes to crank the thing up, providing they can find the lever. Because there were a couple of times when they couldn't. And in order to do that, I would need help in order to manipulate the levers. And that meant that two people, one from the Democratic side and one from the Republican side, would need to be in with me in the booth. All right. And you realize how small this location is, right? So that I could pick and show both of them that I picked the lever that I made them manipulate. Now, the voting experience for me is completely different. And being a person who was part of independent living at the time, we were the big advocates after the Help America Vote Act passed in 2000 about making sure there were accessible machines for people to cast a ballot. For those people that are outside of New York State, this probably won't matter to you, but New York State was the last state to become HAVA vote compliant because they have a big thing about something called the full face ballot. All candidates listed on the same sheet of paper, right?
Todd, can I interrupt? I'm sorry. What is HAVA?
Help America Vote Act.
Thank you.
Right. So it took us a while to figure out what we were going to do. And it finally took a judge, a federal court judge, because we sued in court to make sure that New York State would be compliant. Which is why, and I know I'm doing some spoilers for things that we're going to talk about later, but I'm seeing in the chat, you absolutely do still have accessible polling machines at your polling place. Because if you don't, the county you live in is in violation of a federal law. So the whole point about knowing your rights is knowing that the device is there and knowing to ask for it. That's a good start.
Thank you very much. Very good. Next question. Speaking about, I guess let's start from the beginning. How do we know where our polling places are? I'll hand that off to any one of you.
Well,
Yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
okay, I get a postcard in the mail and it tells me all my information that's on there and where to go. Also, I have went onto this website called Voter Lookup for New York State, and I typed in my information on there, and I'll have your name and your birthday and your zip code. And then once you click on that, then it takes you and it shows you where your polling place is. And so those are my two ways that I know where my polling place is.
So with me, it's the same. I get the voter registration card in the mail. Also, if you go to the Board of Elections website, it takes you right where you can register, where you can look up your ballots and look up where your polling place is.
And you can even call them, right? Because these are county departments and they have phone numbers, and you can call them and give them your name and your address, and they will tell you where your polling place is.
Thank you, Todd. And it's interesting. I was actually going to give the Erie County Board of Elections, but with all the numbers of people from different areas who are participating in this event today, it really wouldn't be any good. But
well, no,
as Todd
hold
said,
on, Frank. Somebody might be watching this later, and that might be important to them. Go ahead.
Well, I will have to get it, Todd. Thank you for putting me on the spot. That's good.
You mean 716-858-8891.
8891. Yep, that's exactly right. Thank you, Todd. 8891. I appreciate that. So there are different ways to vote. Each state may be a little bit different. Here in New York State, we do have early voting, which permits a person to cast their ballot a little bit earlier, and they don't have to go on election day, and stand in line and wait their turn. There are opportunities, a week or so before to do early voting. Sarah, Shanell, have you done early voting? Sarah, how about you first?
I did it once, and it was a little confusing because it's not at my usual polling place. You have to So once I also did the voter lookup, me and my family did the voter lookup for that. And mine is at my one of my county offices. And you go there and it's at certain times. They'll have it like listed on the website, like certain times you can go and show up in certain days to do that. All of that was fine. I didn't have any issues, but the only part was it was just a little confusing because, trying to figure out where you have to go. And since it's not at my usual polling place, that was the only problem. But yeah, I did it once. I don't think I would do it again because it's kind of a little far away from my house and I don't always have a ride. That is my biggest issue with that.
Okay. And how about you, Shanell?
I've actually never utilized early voting, just because, same thing with Sarah, just because it's not close to me. And my actual polling places have always been a really close distance from me. And with this, my most recent polling place being within walking distance, I usually just get up early and go and on the day of voting.
Okay. All right. And Todd, would you like to add anything?
I've actually helped other consumers use early voting and done it once myself, because one of the early voting locations in Erie County is actually close to where I work. So it's actually kind of convenient because it's a place that paratransit can bring people easily to, and it's a thing about the process isn't all that hard once you know where the sites are. So don't give up on early voting. It's a very important way for you to be able to cast your ballot and to be seen doing it. I'm going to say this over and over again on this live stream. It's important that people with disabilities be seen casting their ballot. It's really important that they know that we as people with disabilities vote.
I think that's a very okay.
Frank's muted. Oh, there, come
Yeah,
back.
there we
Frank.
go. Now I'm unmuted. I was just saying, sorry about that. I was just saying, I think that is a super important point. Just because that normalizes things, it says, hey, everyone is allowed to vote. You're age 18, you're allowed to vote. Get out there and vote. No matter who you are, get out there and vote. And especially this year, get out there and vote, right? But we talk about early voting and we talk about polling places. But then the important thing is, how do we get to those polling places? Shanell, would you like to share any information?
Yes, so I know in the past, but I'm not sure if they still do it, independent living offered free transportation to polling places. I'm not sure if they still do.
And for the out-of-state people on the live stream, I think she's referring to us at
Yes.
Western New York Independent Living. So yes, we do that. One of our commitments of our transportation department is to make sure that if somebody wants to cast their ballot in person, that we can help them be able to do that. We also encourage people to use early voting, since we're transporting you to whatever early polling place you want. That provides a lot of opportunities for people to get rides to polling places. For those folks that are out of the Western New York area or out of the state, I would check with your local independent living center to see if they do something like that, because a lot of the larger centers may run transportation programs and that may be a priority for them.
Yes, I actually used it my first time voting because the cab company wanted to charge me over $30 just to go down the street to my polling place. So once I found out about independent living, I jumped right on the opportunity, and they were able to take me and pick me up when I was done, which was much easier than taking paratransit, because paratransit is so unpredictable. They could come and you're not even done voting. So it was just much easier just to have them take you and pick you up. And then right now, I actually just roll myself because it's right down the street. It's less than 5 minutes from my apartment building.
Thank you, Shanell. Todd, do you know, do other independent living centers across the state, across the country, do they offer the same opportunity as free transportation?
As I just said, you definitely want to check, right? Because if they're running a transportation department, that might be a priority for them. I know that we do that because we run a transportation department. I always encourage people to check in with their local ILC if they have any problems with regard to voting.
Okay, very good, very good. And Todd, anything else you want to add to this conversation with regard to transportation?
Well, we definitely want to talk about those folks where transportation is very difficult to impossible, right? Because casting your ballot should be important no matter how you do it, right? Especially in rural areas where there are not a lot of transportation alternatives. We always want to make sure you know about all your options with voting, right? Here in New York, you have two other options, right, to be able to cast a ballot, right? One is what they commonly call an absentee ballot, right? You can get an absentee ballot if you're a person with a disability. You can get an absentee ballot if you're leaving the state or leaving the country on election day, right? That's a thing that's, it's a ballot that comes to your house. You fill it out and follow the instructions to put it back in the envelope and mail it back to your local Board of Elections. And provided in New York that it gets there by election, or it's postmarked by election day, right? It'll get counted. It's very important that we rumor bust this thing about absentee ballots, right? Absentee ballots are always, always, always counted, right? I hear a lot of rumors that say that they're only counted if the margin of victory is so close, or they're only counted in the event of this situation or that situation. No, 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 no. They are always counted, right? It's part of what they call the certification of your election. And if you remember the last time we elected a president, certifications of state elections were a big deal, right? And part of that is making sure that you count all the ballots, the absentee ballots for regular citizens, the absentee ballots for military. Now, the other way you can vote is a little bit more complicated, but this especially helps folks that move around a lot, right? I had to do this once in my voting career. I moved to a building that was converted to apartments from use as a firehouse. So I moved in September. In November, they still hadn't figured out that I lived in an apartment building. So I had to vote by something called an affidavit ballot. In New York, right, you can go to your Board of Elections, right, or or the polling site that is closest to where you live on election day, even if they don't have your name in the book, right? For those people that, you know, the process of voting is about approaching the table and signing your name in the book saying, I want a ballot, I want to vote. Even if your name is not in the book, you can vote by something that's called an affidavit ballot. And it's the same thing. It's like an absentee ballot. It's a written thing to help you fill it out. It goes in an envelope. And then the Board of Elections investigates. And then when it turns out that you're eligible to vote, they will count your vote, right? In my case, it took a couple days, right? Because they had to go, no, 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 you're absolutely right. You do live in an apartment building. We hadn't added you to our list yet. You'll be in the book for this polling place next time, right? So even if you're going somewhere, but maybe you just moved living sites, right? And the election's next week, don't forget that you still have the right to cast a ballot.
Thank you. Sarah, do you have anything you'd like to add with regard to the transportation piece?
For me, if I don't have like my family, like if my family is unable to take me or my staff is unable to take me, then I don't really have a way to get there because I don't have any public transportation by my house because I'm in a rural small town. So that is that's a pretty big issue. I I could make it down there eventually, but it would be a long time because there's lots of hill. it would take too long to do that.
So what do you generally do?
Thankfully, I haven't ran into that issue.
Oh, all right, good,
I hope I don't ever run into that issue.
good. So we've touched upon accessible voting machines and using the voting machines. I'll start. Let me start with Shanell. What has been your experience utilizing the accessible voting machine?
So I've actually never officially used it at a polling place, but I did try at the most recent Spread the Word event, where I was able to try it. And, you know, I really enjoyed using it. I think it will help a lot of people. The only problem that I had was that the buttons were just a little hard for me to push, but that's only for my own personal strength. But I think it'll really help a lot of people. It'll make voting so much easier for people.
All right, great. And Sarah, how about you? Have you used the accessible voting machine?
I have also tried it out, and it was really helpful for me because I struggle with reading comprehension, and just to have that machine read it to me was just really helpful. I've like throughout my schooling, I've either had someone read me my tests, or I've had a screen reader for different books and assignments and stuff. And when I tried out that accessible voting machine, it just was, it just flowed together and I could understand what I was looking at.
Okay. All right. And finally, how about you, Todd? The accessible voting machine. I'll tell you what, Todd, if you don't mind, can you describe what an accessible voting machine is here to us in Erie County or overall?
So currently here in Western New York, there's two types of machines that you can use, right? One we call the Dominion machine, right? And you can tell because the accessible part of the ballot process is actually on the back of the machine that counts the votes, right? And this is a thing that uses called like a video game controller to help you navigate a screen that will read to you all of your candidates if you needed to, or you can just navigate the screen and press the button to select the one you want. And when all of the candidates that you want to select are selected, you can push a button and it will print a ballot for you that is pre-marked with all of your choices. Okay. Now, the other kind of machine, which we use here in Erie County, is called the AutoMark, and it works slightly differently. They're going to give you a printed ballot, and you're going to go to the machine, and you're going to feed it into the machine like feeding something into a scanner. It's going to scan the ballot, and the little screen is going to then present you the races one at a time. And you can either touch the screen to select the one you want or use the buttons that will allow you to go up and down. And then there's a button in the middle that allows you to select what you want. When you've selected all the candidates that you want to select, you can push a button. It'll review what you've selected, and then it will make the marks on the pre-printed ballot for you. And then you're presented with a choice. You can either have the ballot back, in which case you can take it over to the ballot counter and insert it just like any other voter. I do that every time. Or for somebody whose disability might not allow them to do that, you can directly send the ballot to a sealed container, just like the ballot counter. Okay.
Great. Shanell, you have your hand up, so I'm not sure if you want to make a point or ask a question.
Yeah, so I just want to say with the accessible voting machine, the thing I liked about it is that it was very private. So for me, who have to have staff come and fill out the ballot for me, it made it much easier to where I felt like my choices were private. And people weren't, being biased on who I was voting for. So I love that it was very private and it was just much easier.
Very good. Thank you so much. And Kat, I believe You may have a video to show us what the accessible voting machines look like.
Yes, so this is the auto mark machine. Are you guys able to see it?
I think, yes. If
We
hit
can see
play.
the screen. Nothing
Yep,
on
there
it.
we go.
There we go.
Independently mark a ballot. In addition, the AutoMark is a ballot marking system designed to permit a voter to privately and independently mark a ballot. In addition, it provides audio assistance in the required languages for use by voters in your poll site to permit voters who are more comfortable navigating the system using audio instruction. A sip and puff device is provided for voters who are not able to use the touchscreen or touchpad. The sip and puff device allows you to navigate through your ballot selections using sip or puff inputs. One-time use gloves and a straw are provided and used for sanitary purposes so each voter has a clean straw. In addition, an audio function allows voters with impaired vision to listen to choices through the use of headphones. You may adjust the volume, pause and repeat audio message, and even adjust the audio tempo. One-time use headphone ear covers are provided and used to provide each voter with sanitary audio access. A zoom feature enables the voter to increase the font display of each contest listed on the ballot. The contrast of the screen may also be adjusted to improve the legibility by changing the display from black letters on a white screen to white letters on a black screen by selecting the high contrast function. You can also choose to mark your ballot using a paddle. Plugging in the paddle device allows you to navigate through your ballot using yes or no inputs.
And so then there is the other machine, the image cast.
The ImageCast optical scan voting system is a portable voting machine used by your county. The unit may come with or without the ballot marking device called a BMD, but at least one BMD will be assigned to your polling site. Inspectors are also assigned to your polling site to assist you however and whenever necessary. Most voters will obtain a pre-printed ballot containing all candidates and contests. This is given to you by an inspector at your polling site. You will be directed to a privacy booth or area where you mark your ballot using a special marking pen. When completed, you will place your ballot into a privacy sleeve and take it to the ImageCast to be scanned. The marked paper ballot is then inserted into the ImageCast ballot counter, which reads the ballot and deposits it into an internal compartment within the ballot box. Although your inspectors are happy to demonstrate how to complete a ballot, some voters may need or want assistance in marking his or her ballot. The ImageCast with the BMD has additional features that can assist any voter with this process. Once you tell the inspector that you wish to use the BMD, an accessible voting session will be created for you. You will be given the option of using one of several assistive devices. These may include a handheld audio tactile interface, known as an ATI, a sip and puff device, or paddle button device. All of these devices allow for navigating the ballot. There is also a display screen, which, at your request, may be turned on at the beginning of your session for you to view the ballot and your selections. Any of these devices will also instruct you on how to add write-in votes. Once your session is completed, the BMD prints a marked ballot based upon your selections into a privacy sleeve. This ballot is then ready to be inserted into the ImageCast ballot scanning station, just like the paper ballots. At this time, upon your request, an audio-visual final review session can be set up. Once satisfied with your selections, you will cast your ballot. It is automatically deposited into the same internal compartment as all of the other ballots. After the polls close, the ImageCast prints a results tape that shows the number of ballots cast and the tabulated results from all voters' ballots cast on that machine.
Well, thank you very much, Kat. Thank you for showing that. I want to emphasize that these machines can be used by anyone, and I emphasize anyone. You don't have to say or prove that you have a disability to use the machine. We have to understand that some people have visible disabilities and some people have invisible disabilities. So it is a law that anyone can use these machines. Todd, do you want to touch upon any of that?
Absolutely. The Help America Vote Act is very specific as to what your rights are when you want to cast a ballot. So we want you to remember some other things in addition to what Frank just said. Poll workers should not be encouraging you not to use the accessible ballot marking device, right? If there's a problem with the machine, these machines are getting older, and that does happen from time to time. They can let you know that. But provided the machine is in working order, they should be directly showing you to the machine and helping you figure out how it works, right? You don't have to say anything in specific about your disability, right? But since we're talking about rights and voting, let's make sure that we clear the whole thing about what you need in order to have the right to vote, right? You need to be 18 years old at the time the election occurs, right? So if you're 17 today, but you're going to be 18 on Halloween, right? Register now, the state will let you, right? So because you will be 18 on the date of the election. Most people with disabilities, some folks are wondering if there's a way that their voting rights can be taken away. We talk about that a lot. All right, let's be very clear that your right to vote can only be taken away in very limited circumstances. Even if you have a legal guardian at home, your guardianship agreement must specifically say that you don't have the right to vote. If it doesn't, then you do have the right to vote, and you have the right to cast your own decisions, right? And then the last thing I want to add is, if you go somewhere and the poll worker doesn't help you, the machine's busted, it's not turned on, you don't get the right to cast an independent secret ballot, you have the right to complain about that. And in New York specifically, our Protection and Advocacy Division, Disability Rights New York, has a specific person who is designated to help people with problems in casting their ballot. I've helped several consumers with that in my role as an independent living center person in the past. People that would go to their polling place to discover the ballot marking device not plugged in or not set up in a place that they can reach, right? And we've done what we call HAVA, Help America Vote Act complaints, with Disability Rights New York, who have complained to county election offices, and we have fixed for those folks their right to cast an independent secret ballot. So even if it doesn't work the way you might want it to work, if you think your rights have been violated, there's a place to go. Disability Rights New York is a great place to go.
So Todd, Brady Dean, I'm not sure where Brady is from, but Brady asked, so what if we don't have an accessible voting machine? What can he do?
Federal law is very specific on this. There has to be an accessible way for you to be able to cast a ballot. So it's really unusual to come across a situation where there isn't an accessible way to cast a ballot. Now, your state may have different rules about how that works, but the federal law is very specific. So I would check with either your local Board of Elections or your state Board of Elections to ask what the accessible options to vote are.
So Thank you. Brady actually just responded. He said Wayland, New York. I'm not sure where Wayland, New York is or what county, but I think, Brady, if I can just let you know, I think you should reach out to your county board of elections, as Todd just said. If you are not being provided an accessible voting machine, you should reach out to your county board of elections, and hopefully they should be able to help you out. So
Yeah, that's Steuben County, Frank. So I happen to know that your county uses the image cast machine, right? And that those features should be available to you at every polling place, because New York State has regulations about that are very specific.
thank you, Todd. Great. So we'll continue on here. I'm going to ask each of you, starting with Shanell. Shanell, how do you plan on voting this November?
I plan on getting up early and taking myself down to my polling place and hopefully being one of the first few to vote. I really like going in person to voting, like Todd said, I think we should be soon casting our votes, so that they know that people with disabilities do vote and our voices do matter. So I plan on just, getting up that morning and going up there and voting.
Very good. Thank you. And how about you, Sarah?
In person on election day. It gives me a sense of pride and accomplishment to go in person and do that.
Great. And Todd, how about you?
Of course, I'm gonna go vote in person. I take my roommates. We all go together after work. I also have a very busy election day because locally I'm one of the places you can call if you're having a problem with your machines not working. So I'm at a lot of polling places on election day. The last one I go to before I go home is my own.
Okay. So you've each answered that you're going to vote in person, which is great. I guess to you though personally, why is it important for you to vote in person? And I'm going to reverse order a little bit here, Todd.
Well, I've said it before and I'll say it again. It's important that your neighbors and the politicians that you vote for see you going to the polling place and voting, right? You might see every time you go to a polling place, there's a specific spot where all of the candidate workers hang out to give you a flyer, like one last opportunity to convince you to vote for them, right? I need those people to see me. I need my neighborhood to see me, right? It's a thing that everyone does. Now, having said that, Frank, I'm going to say to folks that if that's not you, right? If being seen voting isn't a thing that's particularly important to you, vote whatever way you can, because your vote counts. The last time we elected a president, it was a linchpin on less than 10,000 American citizens. Think about that. 1/10 of my local football stadium was the tipping point on who became the president of the United States. Every vote matters. Now, I'm going to go and be seen because I want people to see me. But if that's not you, cast an absentee ballot, cast an affidavit ballot, do early voting in a place that's convenient for you, whatever method, because it's the ballot that counts.
And Sarah, I'll ask you the same thing.
Yeah, I also want people to see me going in person and voting. And it's just that pride. Like you go in there and you sign it and you just get that really good sense of pride, like, your voice is being heard and you're making a difference.
Okay, great. And Shanell.
For the same reasons, I want to be seen, I want people to know that, I want my voice heard. I want other people with disabilities to see me and say, if they're going out and voting, then I should be able to go out and vote too. I want the people to know that it's okay to vote, and it's important to get your voice heard.
So Shanell, I'm gonna kind of ask you a follow-up. Why is voting important? And you just said voting is important, but why is it important?
Voting is important because it gives you a way to get your voice out there. It gives you a way to make sure that the things that we need as people with disabilities and as American people, that those things we're getting, as far as people with disabilities. So people actually fought for us to have the right to vote. And as a person of color, as an African American, people fought for my right to vote as well. So I think I owe it to my ancestors and other people with disabilities that fought for us to vote too.
And how about you, Sarah? Why is voting important? Not necessarily to you, but why is voting important? Voting in general.
If you don't like what's going on right now, go vote, go make a difference. It's gonna help, go research the candidates and see which one aligns with you the most. And, you know, um, just doing that. You want to go get your voice heard. You want to make a difference. Then voting is very important in that way. Go make that difference. Go get your voice heard and all of that.
Okay. All right. Very good. And Todd, I'll ask you the same thing, but I'm also going to kind of follow up along with what Sarah said too. How do we get information, factual information? There's a lot of information about candidates out there. We have a debate this evening about from our two presidential candidates. How do we know the facts, though? I mean, there's facts, and then there's the other stuff. How do we know the facts?
Right. You should, right, when at all possible, meet candidates yourself. As a person with a disability, I think that that's really important. One, because if they win, they get to know you as a constituent. But my independent living center, for example, does a Meet the Candidates Day every year for candidates who want to know the disability perspective. Not every community does that. So if you're looking for impartial information, like it says in the chat, I definitely recommend Ballotpedia and Vote 411. But the New York State League of Women Voters is actually very good at getting information about candidates and issues out to folks. They do publications that talk about candidates that might be running for a specific office. So contacting your local League of Women Voters is also a really good place to go.
Excellent. Very good. Very good. And I guess really the final question, and I think you've answered this already, Todd, but does everyone have the right to vote?
Repeat the question for me.
Does everyone have the right to vote?
Everyone should have the right to vote. It's the only choice we get to make where, remember, we live in a representative democracy, right? We don't vote on every issue that comes our way. We only select the people that do the voting about the issues that come our way. And this is the only way you get an opportunity to do that. I'm a firm believer, if you don't vote, you don't get the right to complain.
That's a very good point. All right. Well, thank you very much. Those are the questions that I have. Kat, have there been any other questions that people have asked that we have not answered? Have you seen anything?
Not that I've seen.
Okay.
We want to open it up?
We have a few minutes left. If you'd like to open it up, sure, go ahead.
Yeah. Are there any questions from folks listening that they have for the speakers?
I do have a question.
Sure, go ahead, Angela.
I'm here on behalf of my son who have autism and he's not verbal. And through the years, I was looking for in the election time who talk about my son needs and his peer needs. And nobody mentioned it. We're invisible. They're invisible, caregivers are invisible. So when the election comes, it's hard for us to pick who is going to represent us. We are the constituent, we go to their office, we talk to them, our representatives here. I'm from Westchester County. And the only answer I get is educate the other legislators. Because one or two representatives, it's hard for them to pass laws that really is going to improve the quality of life of people with disability. My son just graduated from high school, but I know how far is this problem coming through the years. And in New York City, I didn't realize that they don't have the traffic lights, the beep when it's right for people, the color is red, I'm sorry. With people, for example, that they don't have the vision. And the city have 10 years to fix that. I couldn't believe that happened just years ago. The law was signed in 1990. ADA, we celebrate ADA year plus year, and there is change that must be done. But I don't see in our politicians talk about us. Nobody talk about the needs. Nobody talk about the lack of help for people with disability in residential places, respite help at home for caregivers to go back to work or continue working. This is a crisis that I don't know how we could focus in our representatives. I don't know how we could get all together to educate our representatives and legislators. Any tips?
So yeah, so Angela, I'll tell you what, because time is very limited here. Todd, you want to throw out an answer?
I'll help you out here, Angela. You in Westchester County have two really great independent living centers with some people that are very experienced in New York City politics. Westchester ILC and Westchester Disabled on the Move are both good places to go to talk about these issues and how to organize around them. New York State politics is really complicated. That could be a whole separate bunch of lunch and learns by itself. Your rights under the ADA also could be a whole different lunch and learn. But the thing I'm going to say to you is this: you have an issue that you can speak intelligently about because you just did. So now what you've got to do is make sure that you're in front of the people that can best affect that issue. And the thing with New York State politics, sadly, is that there are some legislators that have more power than others. Committee chairman, leadership in the chamber, all of those people, right? It's not everybody's vote counts in the chamber, but there's a seniority system, right? Which is why your local is telling you you need to convince other legislators because I'll vote for you. But what about the other 134 assembly people or the other 68 senators, right? That's what he's talking about. More people have to get behind what you want in order to be able to move it in state politics. Start with your local ILCs. They have people there that can help you.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
So I want to just give everyone, each of our panelists, like 10 seconds here to kind of give a final point. And let me start with Sarah.
Get out and vote. Make a difference. Every vote counts.
Thank you, Sarah. That was perfect. How about you, Shanell?
I'm gonna say every vote count. A lot of people think that their vote doesn't count, but literally every vote counts. So just get out there, get your voice heard, and make a difference.
Very good. Thank you to you, Shanell. And Todd, you got the last word, buddy.
Well, what they said, but also if you've got time and you want to, be politically astute, volunteer for a campaign, show that people with disabilities care about the people that have supported you. The political process is also there for you. Voting is why we're here today, but it's not the only part. So do what they said, and then if you want, there's a way to do more.
Thank you. And thank you to our panelists, Todd Vaarwerk, Shanell Davis, and Sarah Saunders. I also like to say thank you to Voice Buffalo and Kat Anstedt for all of your assistance today. Wonderful job. And to the group from Arise Buffalo, wonderful. Thank you for this presentation. And everyone have a great day.